Okay. We were reading Ezekiel 27, and I wanted to start out by saying I looked into the minute wheat, minute wheat that was being imported. I'll show you something interesting. Well, I'll wait because you want to look. I want to hold that for a while. You'll probably want to look at it for a little while. It's pretty confusing. Um, The root language is unclear, but when you start to back up and look at the progression of words in the concordance, you find an offering, somebody guilty that you make an offering for sin. So you're talking about a blood rite, and it seems like this is your crop signs or whatever, the circles or whatever you want to say, but that whole demon sort of thing in the corn, and that corn seems to come out of nowhere. And but that this is the offering, everything to do with an offering about guilt, sin, guilt, and even offering a guilty one. Then in the language of MINN itself, let's see, we've got a lighting problem going on. Anyway, you have it extends on into minstrel, and you or like minister, or the harp, and you start finding these connections in those instruments of praise. Looking at the synonyms, Psalms is almost as important as Job, and so you get this whole idea of this no, I don't want to say minotaur, but because this word is associated, but with the mountain where they fit, what is the name of it? Not Zion, but Sion. And that is the idol that you might think of as the ram head or ram feet and the horned head of an upper body of a man, the whole Shakespearean type deal. So we're talking about that association, and that it has sound association, as those wars tell us that the creatures that they fit had mesmer to their noise and sound. So I wanted you to see Picasso's version. And Minotaur, of course, is part of it. You have the Minoan culture, but we're really talking about basically a human sacrifice. And you get into buying the den and the field, but that's his idea of what this monster is. So that this LSD hypnotic effect, whatever is going on there in the mental, but you see this little antenna in this woman's hand. Please don't miss that. The batteries of Egypt, etc. When you read the definition, you will be referred to the MEN. And when you go to the appendix and you look up MEN, you will find mention and this whole censorship. If you say anything, this little wire with this battery on is going to come and get you. That it is a sin offering, and it just links right back into the entire idol worship thing and descriptions from that. So that to make mention of, it's associated also with Sion, and like I said, the whole mountain where these things were supposed to have lived, and you get into other things to say. I won't go that far. but that it also, in the word itself, you have fearful mountain, this thing's in the mountain, the MEN. Mount, paramount, words such as that. So it's worth looking up in the dictionary. So that might entertain you a little bit, but we are talking about idol worship that because of it, and because it was able to prosper, and because they could get out of their sins with this offering. And then you have the corn and oil. And this is a lot that does these offerings, and whatever this little baton wand is, that's probably what Jesus drew in the sand. That or the procession of the zodiac, who knows? But when they were going to stone the woman who evidently committed adultery all by herself. So getting out of sin and offering, a cursed person that's guilty for your sin, basically, and you get this stitching on of iniquities. So this mesmer, whatever's going on, this madness that keeps reoccurring, just worth a note there. So what these tyre, these merchants and mercenary men and Shanghaiers, slave traders, were importing something a little bit more than minnit rice. so I did look that up. We left. I did not mark where we left off because it took me so long. But all these merchants are really merchandising a really good looking bunch of civic leaders and a civic temple with women. The alternative, and we know that with Esau that he wore that robe, whatever cursed thing that was, whether this was him in the robe, who knows? I don't know. But we have the broidered look, but the look of fairness of the sun too. You get a pretty big polarity sort of thing where poles can stretch and crunch. That seems to have some kind of uprightness and this fairness thing, but that's purely guessing. Just keeps reoccurring with polar anomalies. Dan, we know he's the one who made these false idols and took ground that with an image of a religious system to conquer the land with, in addition to what God gave him. And we're warned about that coming on down and being part of the last days. And of course, this stuff came from Hitler, and we have the MK Ultra, and now we have 5G mental health all over the world. And that's from all the data that came from MK Ultra going into brain mapping. And this is not something that you can purchase unless you want to, like, buy a phone. Only you buy a chip and put it in your skull if you want access to it. But military and governments and globally, this is peace by no more secrets. And that's how the God helmet, and I'd look that up if I were you. I'd watch 2 or 3 of those things and see. And that was on television. The guy that was made a vault room and a little chair and discovered that got billions of dollars for his research right out of the university. They had that on some little show. So I will try to find where we're at here. Asher, Haran and Cana and Eden and the merchants of Sheba. Asher, Chilmad were thy merchants. These were thy merchants in all sorts of things, in blue clothes and embroidered work, in chests of rich apparel, which I've only been catching on to this chest type thing of that, but the rich apparel, bound with cords and made of cedar among thy merchandise. So this bound together, there earlier readings in my own studies today, I was finding, and he cuts the cords asunder, that you get timber and the symbol of the supposedly made mud signs of timber and strapped together with an axe in the middle. He refers to men in passages that I read earlier today on that. But that this system collects any faith out there and brings it down from the inside. This is a tree that's roots wrap around the rocks. I wanted to read out of, and this is a city civic system, how it got started and how that it works. Babylon has fallen does not mean the city fell. It means the idea of a divine city has come to be on earth like Satan falling. And in Job, you find, behold, I saw a mountain fall to earth. So when you say Ephraim fell so in love with idols, it was so easy to rule the market, that he has this idea of a new age, and that it will not, it's a birth that gets stuck in the birth canal. So it does not happen. This plan that they've got, we're told, for global, it breaks up, and then God's kingdom being free of this, and we find this false vine is the tares that get raptured first. So whatever has gone on all this time, these men think that they're the chosen, and it doesn't end that way. That the day of their visitation, that it's global. Yeah, the wicked time is up. So it's time to come out of that. The ships of Tarshish did sing of thee in thy market, and thou wast replenished and made very glorious in the midst of the seas. Thy rowers have brought thee into the great waters. The east wind hath broken thee in the midst of the seas. Thy riches and fares, thy merchandise, thy mariners, thy pilots, thy caulkers, thy men of war that are in thee, in all thy company, which is in the midst of thee, shall fall into the midst of the seas in the day of thy ruin. And we find that the unwitting faiths that they would encounter are the caulkers, and that's mentioned in the minor prophets for us, that we work on this system and just get pulled into wanting to do for the community as the whole thing turns patriotic and political, with all these broken up issues being debated, thorns and angry preaching on every altar over reducing everything to prey and spoil and works and medication or health drug nettles and the whole drug thing. But that the caulkers are the unwitting bunch that get in there and want to work for their community and get driven like these slaves, and the slime pits that waterproof and that were there during these wars, the whole slime pits around these unusual beings referred to in the Wars of the Five Kings. But that it's dipped in that and shoved in the cracks so we can bring up this glorious golden city idea again. And so it's fleeced, and that he in Ezekiel, grinds our faces off onto and crushes our bones. It's emptying out. It's Beth Aven, house of emptiness, a bottle. The philosophy does nothing, but you're not going to measure up. Just kill another one, kill another one. We need more corn. So that's the caulking part of it. And of course, these rowers are the handlers of this type of philosophy and social committing to pressures. So that you have civic pressures crying crucify, and this is how this stuff works. And that the mastery, something I had come across in this, really, it might have been another message, really links to the math and the language. There is a formula, even if you're who beget who, you have to use so many words that add up to so much. The math is going to stay constant in these things. So there seems to be a zero sum. You'll I ran across that in actually this word, this zero sum idea leads to an error somewhere that it's not applicable. That's how math works. Make it even on both sides. But just like infinity, that bottom number on a fraction cannot go on infinitely. So there's some kind of distinguishment between the material and the field theory. That's really we think of them as particles or atomic particles, and they're fields. So somewhere in between the application of things that are sometimes material and sometimes not, like light. But we're here at that wormhole technology. The suburbs shall shake at the sound of the cry of thy pilots, and all that handle the oar, the mariners and the pilots of the sea, shall come down from their ships, and they shall stand upon the land, and shall cause their voice to be heard against thee, and shall cry bitterly, and shall cast up dust upon their heads, and shall wallow themselves in the ashes. And they shall make themselves utterly bald for thee, and gird them with sackcloth, and they shall weep for thee with bitterness of heart and bitter wailing, and in their wailing they shall take up a lamentation for thee and lament over thee, saying, what city is like Tyrus, like the destroyed in the midst of the sea? When thy wares went forth out of the seas, thou filledst many people, thou didst enrich the kings of the earth with multitude of thy riches and of thy merchandise. And in the time when thou shalt be broken by the seas at the depths of the waters, thy merchandise and all thy company in the midst of thee shall fall. So this is that mountain. If you have enough, just at least a little bit of faith, you can say, mountain, be thou removed. That Tyre also is named as Lucifer. This tree, this market, this system, what I had separated out was from Jeremiah 50. No, it was verse 50. Jeremiah. My Bible came apart. I think it's in the other half. Let's see. Oh, I was only just looking that up, and I wanted to be sure to read that out of Jeremiah, but I can't remember the chapter. The wrong half my Bible, I guess. We'll save that for another time. But again, in this, it talks about that fall, and the surety of that. So I'll read that next time, and just kindly wanted to add and finish off that part that we read. And remember, keep being significant.